Hi Rose.
Morning, Sue.
Now you and I this week have both had our attention caught by a programme that's been broadcast on the BBC called Harvey and Me, which is about the glamour model Katie Price and her son Harvey, who's just turning 18 with complex needs and autism, amongst many of his complex needs, in their search for a residential placement. Now, I thought the programme was really lovely, really well made, showed a portrait of what we know is true of every mum of a young person with complex needs, you know, loving, caring, devoted mother trying to get the best for their child. What did you think about it, Rose?
Well, I agree with you, Sue. I watched it with an open mind. I wasn't sure how I'd feel about it, but actually it felt like it was an honest programme, and the way they presented the interaction with Katie and Harvey, I just thought it was lovely. It was a really positive mum and son relationship.
While I was watching it, Rose, I was thinking of you all the way through it and your journey with your son, which we talked a little bit about in our last video. And one of the key issues that Katie Price mentioned that you had also talked about last week was around behaviours that can be quite difficult or challenging. And last week you said to me you don't like the term challenging behaviour. And actually Katie Price said the same, that actually when you see behaviours that become a little bit challenging, it's always about anxiety, isn't it?
I think the thing is, when you're looking at any transition, it means there's going to be a change. So for managing change, it's likely whether your child has additional needs or not, whether it's you or me. When we're going to change something, we get a bit anxious. So for like my son, who's autistic with complex needs, any change can increase his anxieties to a level where he gets in a state of heightened arousal, and no distraction, no physical support, nothing can enable him to reduce that anxiety. And he communicates, I'm having a really tough time and I don't know what to do, I don't know how to process help, by screaming and shouting and sometimes becoming violent. And people find that difficult to witness and experience, but it's not a challenging behaviour. It's a behaviour that is challenging the rest of us. He's just communicating in that way. I really don't like the expression, and I know Katie did use it in the programme, kick off. I absolutely hate that, because I just think it takes away the human element of the anxiety. Lots of people use it, so I'm not criticising her, I'm just saying I don't like it. But yeah, so I think that there needs to be much more understanding around supporting anybody with anxiety.
I think you've explained that really beautifully, thinking about behaviour as a communication. It's so easy to use that term challenging behaviour as if to say violent, as a violent young person. You know, it comes with such negative connotations, like you say. But one of the things that I was a little bit unsure about, I really admired Katie for taking Harvey to visit the colleges while she herself was in a wheelchair with both feet in a plaster cast, taking a very large young man who, you know, potentially could display some behaviours that she would not physically be able to manage. I mean, granted, there was a lot of other people around, but I really admired her courage for not only undertaking it in the first place, but sticking with it. But I was also left wondering about what I would do in that situation. How advisable it is to take your young person to every visit, to explain every step of the process to them, and how much that then might elevate anxiety. What was your experience of being in a situation like that, Rose?
Well, to be honest, straightforward, I thought she was a little bit crazy to do such a thing. Personally, I wouldn't have chosen to do it that way. I think that I know if we did that for Michael, that would make things very difficult for him, because he'd expect to be going to wherever we went. He wouldn't be able to work out why we were there. Personally, I would go and check the colleges out first, because, and something they said in the programme, and I totally support this, you need your instinct and your gut feeling. And I don't see any point in taking my son to somewhere that my gut instinct's going, he's not coming here. that won't meet his needs. So I wouldn't do it. It's down to personal choice, I guess. But I really think as parents, we need to think how that would impact the need of our child. And as we saw, it increased Harvey's anxiety. So I do think maybe it's worth thinking about different ways of managing that situation. So I'd go for a first visit on my own.
Well, one of the things I was able to recognise in Katie, and like I say, I'm not criticising because I really admire what she did there, I really admire that.
Mm.
But I could also, under the surface, recognise her own anxiety about wanting each placement they went to, for him to like it, for him to want to go there. That obviously is enormously important for her, to take him somewhere to see that he really liked it, that he wanted to go there, to make her feel like I've made the best possible choice. And that's totally understandable. But what I see is a lot of adults then around Harvey saying, are you happy now? Are you happy? Are you happy? And so him saying, yes, he was happy. And I think he genuinely did look happy in the, in a lot of the clips that we saw there. But it just made me think a lot about, as a parent, you have such a lot of your own anxiety in a situation like that. And how do you manage that when you've got to manage your child's enormous anxieties? Do you think that you had the support you needed, Rose, when you were in that situation?
I don't think that I had any support, really. What I would say is I do think that things have changed over the years, which is good. I think it's good I'm able to say that. And now they have like transition teams. So if you have a young person with that level of need, I would expect you to have a social worker. I always work in partnership with any statutory professional. I've had excellent relationships with social workers. I do think things are improving. I know I give them a little bit of a hard time as I'm a registered social worker myself. So I have a high expectation of anybody who supports Michael and works with me. So I do think that there are ways forward. Now, what I really liked from the film was Katie had joined a group. She joined a support group so that she could talk her anxieties with other parents. And I thought that worked really well, because it's very difficult when all of a sudden you're told, right, your child has to leave this school and they're going to move on to something else. If I use an example, it was difficult when we made the decision for Michael to go to a therapeutic residential school from 16 to 19, rising 19. But actually it was the best years of his life, really was. What happened next was there was a college on site and we're like, well, it was fantastic in the school, so let's move him to the college. Everyone's like, oh, fantastic. Once he went to the college, that was such a different experience going into adult services. And I do think planning and thinking about what's right for your child is crucial, and I think lots of people around you, we had wonderful people around us, but actually when it comes down to it, we as parents are the experts. So, believe in yourself and know what is good for your child at whatever age.
That's great. That's great advice. It's that thing, isn't it, about always keep in mind what are the needs of your child. Like you were telling me before, yeah. Rose, what makes them happy, what makes them feel safe, what do they enjoy. What I loved about the placement that Harvey, that Katie applied for Harvey eventually, was that all the doors were sliding doors. So there was a placement that was a good match for his needs because he struggled with doors banging. So I think that one of the important learnings from watching that is definitely around like being able to plan and write a list about what you think is important, and then watching her with those other parents and getting advice from other people was super helpful. But one of the mums she spoke to had a young person who had unfortunately been sectioned, and this mum described exactly what you spoke about just before, Rose, that that the young person had very elevated levels of anxiety, was trying to communicate this, and just ended up in this kind of negative catch-22 situation. And that obviously sounds like a very scary process, and you could see Kate was very scared about that. What can you explain about that sectioning process, Rose?
But, honestly, for me as a mum, I used to have a fear. I used to say I'm not going to mention the F word, which was future, because I was aware that sometimes Michael, my son, would express his anxieties through behaviours that not everyone could manage. So I did have a bit of an anxiety myself about him being sectioned. And I guess over the years, like when he moved from the school to the college, we made an informed choice, but it didn't work. And I think I'd always say to families I support, you will make good decisions at the right time. If then that doesn't work, you just go, okay, what didn't work? And you look at how you can positively move forward with that. Now, what we found, some providers said they could support Michael, but actually they didn't have the experience that they promoted they did. So we did have a situation in November 2014 where all of a sudden we were being faced with a very distressed young man and not the right support. And the occasion, what happened was Michael was sectioned. Now, it, you just have to go with, right, these people are here to support him, they're here to keep him safe, they're here to keep other people safe. Okay. Yes, it's not easy, but actually you want your young person to be safe, and it highlights the fact actually he's not done anything wrong. The people who were supporting him weren't doing it right. They weren't listening. They weren't listening to him. They weren't listening to us. And currently, as far as I'm aware, the only legal structure available to keep your child safe, your young adult safe, is through the section process. And it's not right, it's not nice, it's not fair, it's a total load of rubbish, but it's what we have to work with. Okay. Now, the positive thing from it, I've seen things improve over the last few years, and there is much better focus on supporting a young person so they're not sectioned. Okay. However, again, it's the only legal structure that really can be used to keep them safe at this time. The Mental Health Act is currently being looked at, and there's consultations been happening, and they're looking to change that to make it to find better ways to support somebody with autism and learning disability. So when they reach this state of heightened arousal, that nothing, all the things you do, all the support you give, it's really difficult for them to manage it, to find better ways.
Yeah.
I've had really good experiences with the police understanding, hospitals understanding, mental health social workers understanding. So, it is a last resort. Okay, they'll do everything will be put in place. I understand why Katie was like, oh my goodness, I'm not going to need that. I used to say that. But sometimes we have to use what's there to support a young adult. And I'd just like to say to anyone, if it happens and your young adult goes to an ATU, then the first meeting you have will be, how can we ensure he is discharged? So the plan isn't to keep anybody in an ATU. The plan is, right, they're here, let's look after them, let's support them to leave.
That's useful to know. I think that what I took away from that whole section of the programme was the mother whose son had been sectioned, where there'd been an inquiry that had found it was preventable and predictable. And I think that just highlights the points that we were making before about planning being so important, about keeping focused on what are the needs of your young person and just like keeping those in your mind. So let's just think about what are the key points to take away from the programme that could be helpful for people. And the first point I think really is about this just being an awareness that at a time of transition, now here we're talking about going away to a residential college, but actually for any transition in the life of our young people, anxiety will be heightened for the young people, so be prepared, and for the adults, the parents as well. So, give yourselves a break and just lower expectations at that time. There's something else, isn't there, Rose, about being prepared, planning ahead?
I think, remember that you are an expert on the needs of your child, young person, and you will know what makes them happy. You will know how best they can be kept safe. And so when you go and you're thinking, well, actually, what do I want? What's going to work for my my child? Always focus on that, because you do have good knowledge and you are the expert. So just always remember that.
And I think linking in with that, a third and final important point is just to connect with other people who are in the same situation as yourself. And ultimately, that's what Maze is all about, isn't it? That's what we're here for. That's why I'm so glad to have you as part of the team, Rose, because you have that experience, don't you?
Oh, thank you, Jo. I thought it was good because Katie really connected with the other parent carers that she met with, and I think it is good that we're here, and we can offer support. Nobody wants to get to crisis, and often, sadly, you don't always get the right support until you do get to crisis. But now we have an opportunity. We're here. We can sort parent carers to help them with the planning, to help them think about what they think will work, and make things work before anyone ever gets to the crisis situation.
Yeah, and that's what's so great to have you as part of the team, Rose. As I explained last time, we're working, aren't we, on developing the Maze for Teens and Young Adults program that will be information to help parents and support everybody through that process, that anxiety-provoking process. And of course, you, Rose, have such an enormous amount of expertise and experience in this area. So if anybody watching this wants to get in touch, please do get in touch with us, and we'll do everything we can to support, won't we, Rose?
Absolutely. They're not alone. So please, listen to what she said, and we can support you.